Somebody asks, the company chat room is not safe for work. The company chat room is very not safe for work. It's astonishingly not safe for work. It's
It's not me, people. I swear, it's not me.
Richie's probably the cleanest in there, and Tara's pretty clean too.
Hmm.
Tara's yeah,
Tara's cleaner than me, actually.
hmm yeah. It's Angie says it's mostly Richie. Now it's I'm horrifically guilty of that.
Yeah,
I set the
it's
standards up.
mostly Brent.
I got my start in
But
the
what
hotel
your
business.
on the
And
building, ladies and gentlemen.
son of a yeah, I've always and I've read articles and studies, the places where people swear are like more relaxed or stuff like that. And it's not conscious at all. It's just I came up through hotels and restaurants, and it's very very and working even when I went into software companies, I worked with a bunch of guys from New Orleans, and they were very not safe for work. And we would be in a conference room around a conference room table, and screw you and F this, and we'd be yelling at each other like debating features of stuff. And then we're like, okay, what do you want for lunch? And then we just all go out to lunch together. And my boss was like, I don't think you guys have a good working dynamic. We're like, no, this is normal. This is
We're
what we did
good.
at the time.
We're
Yeah,
good.
I
Yeah, I was the complete opposite. I came up through a bunch of Fortune 500 companies, so that did not happen.
yeah, much more straight laced.
Oh
And
yeah,
some
yeah.
some of it could be from working from home too. Some of that. Eric says, tell everyone I miss them dearly. Well, now too, because we're about 4 minutes away from the start. Feel free to get your questions in. Now is your chance to get your questions in, because once the questions start filling up, we just go first come first serve. And although I don't know if people are, Richard is Disney.
But this one took the cake, Brent. This one dictated everything. I mean,
I'm
they had the book. We had a company booklet we had to abide by, and it's even look how we dressed, how we looked, everything. I did not step on stage once, and it was all regulated.
And it just so people who are listening and didn't see, Richie was holding up his McDonald's badge. No, that's his Disney
Yeah.
badge. So when you weren't on stage, when you were below ground or behind the scenes or whatever, is it still pretty like not? It's pretty safe for work. It's pretty clean and regulated.
Oh yeah, everybody's watching everything. Especially if you're in the parks. If you're in the parks,
Mm.
I mean, everybody's watching everything. Because I worked over at what they call Team Disney. It's the corporate headquarters for Walt Disney World. So that was a little bit different. It was a little looser, but still, you had to tie your tie all the way up to the top.
Wow. Oh, wow. And now, ladies and gentlemen, just look at him. He's wearing a T-shirt. If you work hard, wear a tie for a long period of time, you can get a Spider-Gwen
You
T-shirt.
too can wear a Spider-Gwen T-shirt, and have your 3DS on your desk with the special Zelda
Very
cover.
nice. That's sharp. You are going to flip out. So I bought I don't know if I told you, I bought a MacBook, a plain MacBook.
Okay,
And
so a 13-inch?
yeah, yes, 12.
Oh,
The
12.
really thin one, the super thin one.
Oh, you didn't buy the Pro?
Nope, just one port, one USB port. Yep,
Are you kidding? You bought a glorified iPad? Is
I
what
did.
your iPad Pro has more power than that MacBook.
So I ended up saying I'm going to sell both of my iPads, because I had the big iPad Pro and a
Yeah,
small iPad Mini.
yeah.
Sold both of those. Gave Erica my old MacBook Pro, and I'm switching over. I'm 100% USB-C now. Yeah,
With
yeah,
one port.
yeah.
Oh
Yep.
my gosh.
So I'm going to pick up one of the Pros, a 15-inch Pro. I'm still trying to torn between a 15 and a 13-inch Pro. I like the 15s just because you can throw a 2 TB solid-state drive in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to go for it. Why not? It's
Do the Pro.
yeah.
I thought you bought the Pro, but you bought the
No, the
iPad
cheap
with the
one.
keyboard is what you
Yeah,
bought.
yeah. Because half a terabyte of solid state drive. It's fast. It's blazing fast. It's a nice thin kind of thing. So it's perfect for the planes. What I found out was every time I'm on an airplane, I just end up popping the iPad Pro out with the keyboard anyway, and I'm just typing on it. So I'm like, what's the point? And you've seen me like try to multitask on an iPad Pro, where I drag windows into various spots, and it sucks. Yeah, the Surface. So Richie's holding up his Surface. Do you have the Surface or the Surface Book? You have the Surface?
This is the Surface Pro 4.
Yeah.
I opted for the super nice, luxurious keyboard.
He's not joking, ladies and gentlemen. The Surface Book or Surface Pro's keyboard, the wool tweed type thing, that's
Whatever that is, it's amazing.
swank. Yeah, very nice. Fellow Human says Doug and David Klee both recommended the regular MacBook over the Pro and Air. The Pro has so much more CPU though. I just don't do anything that needs that much CPU power on the road. Yeah, all I do is PowerPoint and Excel. That's because I'm a guy now. I'm just a general guy. I'm not a geek anymore. I just sit around and that's not true. I'm working on SQL Server today. Get all excited when I look at execution plans. I'm still woo.
Yeah. So for me, it will not work at all. I mean, at all. I mean, my fans were spinning. I wasn't even doing anything in here. I wasn't running anything. But it was like 12 o'clock in the morning, and I'm in the office, and I hear the fans spin up, and I'm like, oh, okay. I think I've got a few things running, and I'm looking right now, and I've got like 4 versions of Visual Studio open, 2 versions of Visual Studio Code, SSMS, got 20 billion browsers. Yeah, I need a little more punch, and that MacBook is not it, dude. No.
And if I look down, I'm running a VM with SQL 2016, a text editor, Tweetbot, Slack, GoToWebinar, and Chrome, and that's it. That's it. And when I switch back out of the webcast, yeah.
Still too much.
All right, let's see what we got for questions here. Nate says, I don't know if you guys are open to this or not. No, we're not really. That's the next question.
No.
Just kidding. I'd love to have you check out my blog. He says, I'm a new blogger and I write about DBA stuff since that's my current job and passion. I'd love to have some feedback from the pros. I assume he's talking about Richie. URL is natethedba.wordpress.com. Nate, the one piece of advice I'd give you is go get your own URL, and it's only like $10 a year. You can get them from GoDaddy, from AWS, Namecheap. There's a bunch of providers that do it. WordPress will charge you, I want to say it's $30 a year to be able to use your own vanity URL. But the thing is, that way it's totally you and it looks way more professional. You're going to be telling it to people for years, so you might as well just get the URL that you want there.
Yeah, don't do Joris.com because you're going to have to tell people that there's 2 R's, 2 S's, and they're like, what's Joris? And it's like, okay, never. In the 90s, it made sense. Not so much nowadays.
Yeah. Another person says, since you guys are in Chicago, I'm guessing the Black Friday sales start at midnight Central Time. The best thing to do is if you on the blog post where we announced the Black Friday sales, the word Black Friday is a hyperlink. Click on that, and it'll show you the exact time in your own local time zone because it's not midnight Central. Dun, dun, dun. Fellow Human says, on one of the previous Office Hours webcasts, Eric mentioned that lazy spools are often an indication of bad performance. Can you elaborate on why and how to avoid them? So that hasn't been my experience generally that I see a one-to-one. When there's a lazy spool, I go after that. I think what Eric was saying, and I think I agree with, because of course he's not here so I can speak for him, is that when there's a plan and I see a lazy spool, it's a crappy query that I need to do something about, or a crappy plan, not enough indexes, whatever. I don't focus on the spool. I take a step back and just start looking at, all right, what's this query doing? How am I assembling data together, and what can I do in a better way? Often it involves things like index tuning or query tuning, but I don't focus on the spool itself. Let's see here. Next up, now someone says my buffer manager page reads per second is 403. However, my page life expectancy is 22,089. What's the problem? First of all, I don't look at either of those numbers, but I'll tell you what's happening. What's happening is stuff is staying in memory for a long period of time. However, you're having to read 400 pages from disk. 400 pages times 8K is nothing. It's not that big of a deal. I could read 400 8K pages in 1 second. I've taken speed reading classes.
Yeah, no.
I wouldn't comprehend any of it. Richie's seen me read documentation. Even when I only read 1 page a minute, I'm like, what's this mean again, Richie?
Even his emails, just no.
It's about the rate of emails that I get. So what I would say is you don't necessarily have a memory pressure problem. SQL Server is just reading some stuff from disk. What you want to look at is wait time instead. If you search at wait time on brentozar.com, you'll get a whole bunch of blog posts about how to do that. My personal favorite way to do that is SP Blitz First. SP Blitz First will tell you what your performance problems are right now. Next up, Nate says, pretty please, I promise I have a real question to ask to maybe even blog about. We had a view which had a bit casted to an int column, and when we changed it back to a bit, it broke the .NET app with an invalid cast exception. It's using Entity Framework. Any ideas why that would happen? I thought the app code would handle implicit gracefully, but I guess not. What on earth are you doing that for?
Well, you do have to change your code. So if you have an entity framework entity, well, it's because of what it is, and it's mapped to a table or a view, it's not implicit. You're actually declaring it in the background as an int or string or whatever. And so you'll have to go into the code and then tell it, hey, by the way, this is an int or a bit. So that's probably where you're broken. You'll just have to change that mapping, and it should be fixed.
I also have this horrible vision that somewhere data's coming back as like a 9 or a 14 instead of a bit, just with somebody's crazy cast error. Next one, I'm thinking of a Mac since the battery gate with my Surface Pro 3, even though they finally fixed it. How your battery has been on the Surface Pro 4? You have a 4.
It's been fine. What I've been telling people about my Surface 4, as I like it, I really love it. But this is my third machine. Like, I actually have 3 machines that I actively use. So I've got one I'm using right now. I've got this baby that I use at night, and then the Surface Pro 3 is essentially a large tablet for me. So everything's been fine on it, though. I had one problem, and it was a hardware problem I've had since day one. I went right into the Microsoft Store. They changed it right out, and I was back up and running literally within the next hour or so. But I'm not the way I use my Surface Pro is not the way I would normally use a machine. So
you don't run like 3 instances of Visual Studio on there.
No, not at all. I mean, it's all there, but I don't actively write code on it or anything like that.
So you're the same as me. That's what you're saying. It's installed.
Yeah, so in 10 years, when I not actually doing anything with technology, I will be you. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Might take longer than that. Yeah, sadly. To take your skills to atrophy to this level, it's, measured in decades.
You forget developer skills, they go quick, right? A lot quicker than DBA skills.
Yeah, wow. You guys have to learn new languages every 6 weeks. Yeah, it's nuts.
Haven't we had this conversation before?
Yes.
I watched the Pluralsight course yesterday, Brent.
We're to give people in the background an idea. So we develop stuff like, so you take Paste the Plan, for example, which is developed in AWS using Lambda, which is function as a server, aka serverless code. And it's not really serverless. Nick Craver has a heart attack every time we say that, but there are real servers behind. It is bad marketing. But new frameworks come out with that like every 60 days on how you go about accomplishing that stuff.
Yeah, not even that, but even some of the new features that have been around a little bit. So what I've been playing with this week is ECMAScript 6, which is the next version of JavaScript. So I've been messing with that in Lambda this week, and it just makes things a lot cleaner. And all the spaghetti code I had to write with Paste the Plan, now that with using ES6 syntax will be a lot cleaner. And I'm smiling a lot more this week than I did, when I was writing Paste the Plan. So that's good.
Golly. I would also say don't change from Windows to Mac. Don't take that lightly. Changing either way sucks. Jumping platforms. I've tried to switch back over to Windows repeatedly because Windows 10 is amazing. Windows 10's freaking fantastic. Someone says, now the SQL Server 2016 Service Pack 1 is out there. Would you feel comfortable using that in production? Of course, after testing in a test environment first. I'm actually working with a client today on 2016. That's going to be one of my recommendations is to go to Service Pack 1. Not even, people get really excited about having Standard Edition to have the same capabilities for developers that Enterprise Edition has. Forget that. There's really cool DMV and execution plan changes that are awesome. In this case, it's exactly going to help the client get better execution plan insight when they're going and doing query performance tuning. So if you're on 2016, I would totally go to SP1. Just make sure you test it first. And if you're trying to consider a new deployment today, I would totally vote for 2016 and with Service Pack 1. It's just great.
Do you want to mention Eric's post on 2016 SP1?
Yeah, Eric has an opinion, and I agree with entirely. Eric said that when Microsoft put the Service Pack, put the Enterprise Edition, and for those of you who are listening, I have air quotes around my head, Enterprise Edition features in 2016 Standard Edition in Service Pack 1, they really kind of took the leftovers. They didn't take the best features. They just took these fringe features that are well tested and everybody kind of knows how they work, but nobody really wants to use them. So great examples of that are always encrypted, partition tables. You hardly ever see that stuff out there. And yes, it's going to make ISVs' lives a little easier, but it really doesn't help DBAs at all. DBAs, all the features that we wanted, online index rebuilds in standard edition, creating indexes online, merry-go-round reads. There's a lot of things that I think we should have had in standard edition if we're going to get features, and we didn't get those.
Yeah, I mean, as a developer, I should be really jazzed about all the cool stuff they threw in standard, but without raising the memory limits, it's meaningless.
Yeah.
It's almost like, hey, look all the stuff that you can get and you could do, and I'd be like, yay, I get to play, and then all of a sudden it's like, but you only could stay on standard. I'm like, why is it so slow? I don't understand.
Yeah, if you need partitioning, the odds that you're going to be able to still perform well on 128 gigs of RAM are not good. Usually, stuff like partitioning is designed for much larger data sets.
Yeah.
I'm actually, like, when I saw it drop, I'm like, okay, I have a vision 2 years from now. The amount of partitioning work we're going to be doing is skyrocketing because everybody's going to go throw partitioning in as soon as they can, and then they're going to find out, oh, it actually makes queries slower instead of faster.
Yep. 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 And why aren't my index? Why can't I do partition swapping? Because I've put index across the entire table, and yeah, that's going to be fun.
Yeah, not a performance fix. Someone says, so is 2016 better than 2014 and worth going to? Absolutely. For DMV improvements that are much better, Query Store is my personal favorite. I believe that feature alone is worth going to 2016 for. Thanks, Connor Cunningham. I love you, even though you don't love me right now. I wrote a blog post that made you angry. One person, let's see here, says, doing some testing with always-on availability groups, and I'm having trouble with SQL users in the replicated database losing their mapped link after a failover. Is there an easier way to reestablish this link after failover? It must be a common issue. It is. And in this case, always-on availability groups has a lot of similarities to database mirroring. Database mirroring exhibits the same problem. The guy who wrote the book on database mirroring, his name is Robert Davis, aka SQL Soldier. If you search for SQL Soldier sync logins, not as in sync my battleship, but as in synchronize logins, he has a script out there that will help you go about doing that. Any suggestions for getting RPO and RTO for high availability disaster recovery from an organization? Yeah, absolutely. Go to our site, go to brenozar.com, put in your email address, or click on free stuff up at the top of the blog. And we have a worksheet, an HADR worksheet for this exact purpose. What this does is it lets you fill in the current state first. You fill in how much data you're going to lose when the server goes down, how long you're going to be down for based off of things like your backups and whatnot, and then hand that to the business and say, here's current state. If you want it to be nicer, you pick what you want. And the second page of that worksheet has prices to help you make that a lot easier with the business. JH says, what are some factors on the database side of things that cause timeouts? So there's really two parts to a timeout question. One is timing out before you connect to SQL Server. The other part is timing out waiting for your results. For timing out connecting to SQL Server, you really have to watch on the application side of things because often SQL Server never even hears the call. For timing out on query executions, SQL Server doesn't have a timeout. It will sit there and run your crappy query for years or decades. So then that's also an application setting on how long you want to wait for your queries. So in both cases of those, I start working with my developers and saying, all right, if you're having problems connecting, then let's go set up ping monitors, any kind of monitoring utility from your application server over to the SQL Server, so we can start see when you're not even able to ping the SQL Server, then we can work with the network guys to figure out how to fix that. Oh, there's someone who asks an interesting question. Set Statistics IO on gives you great information where tuning in terms of reads. I know where you can go with that information. Richie, tell them where they can go with their Set Statistics IO output.
Thanks, Don Pardo. You can go to statisticsparser.com.
So when they
Wow,
go
you
to
was a
Statistics
good
Parser,
take there. Dang, I was almost there.
so close. The Don Pardo thing was what did it. I was like, that's good. He says, am I correct in assuming that each read is 8K? So when I'm talking to my developers, I can tell them how much data their current query is reading and start asking, does it make sense that this thing is reading, say, 10 gigs worth of data when they're writing their queries?
Yes. Those are
Yes.
pages.
Those are great. Good.
Yep.
And it's always the consistent number. It doesn't change.
Yep. And if you go to statisticsparser.com, it will not only parse it out for you, so you can actually read it and know that that's millions and not just kind of having to do the, oh, here's a comma, here's a comma, here's a comma, but also aggregate it for you as well. So it will give you the total number of page reads over a query.
Super helpful. Someone says, how do I resolve the issue where a database, blah, 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 blah. I have a database with one database ID, say 6 on the primary and 8 on the secondary in always-on availability groups. That's totally okay. Doesn't affect anything at all. Database IDs can be different on every server. Someone says, Brent, you are awesome because 2 years ago I was new to Twitter and posted a question not using the SQL help. Instead, I just named certain people. I was mocked by others while you helped me understand how to use SQL help by reading your blogs. Yeah, I'm glad I could help. Twitter is not intuitive. Twitter is the opposite of intuitive. It's like those old IRC. Richie, were you ever on IRC?
Of course, Brent.
Yeah, I thought so. And BBSs and all that. All these cryptic
BBS is, oh, let's upload more stuff so I can get more download credits.
Or the old, there was a Zmodem hack where you could cancel your download at the last second and it would not, fill up your account points. It would do it right after you sent the confirmation. I'm all for that. Everything about databases is cryptic, online is cryptic, so whenever I can help people, just make sure you can pay it forward. My current attempt to go pay it forward is groupby.org. If you go to groupby.org, all one word, no spaces or minus signs, at groupby.org, we're building a platform where people can teach each other, where you can go submit a session, you can vote on which sessions you'd like to see, you can leave feedback to presenters so that they can help make their own abstract better. So it's like a live conference submissions process, and we're just going to take the top-rated submissions from readers and then go let them present them online on just January 13th.
It's such a great idea. It's
such
a great opportunity, man. Oh.
It's going to be so much fun. Plus, it'll use this exact same platform that you're looking at here. Those of you who are online, those of you who are listening to the podcast, same exact deal. So you'll see talking heads. Like I'll be in there as a co-host for whoever's doing the presenting. So if something goes up in flames, we can still have a good time talking about it. I can post the questions that people ask verbally. It just really helps presenters relax as they see the talking heads and not freak out.
Yeah, I could totally see how me presenting with Brent Ozar's face right there is not going to, freak people out at all. No, I mean, it's totally normal. It happens to me all the time.
I could wear a mask. Yeah, see, now that you say that, I'm like, I've always thought of myself as being like, no, but yeah, no, I think you have a point there. I could be actually worse. And it won't be me every time, too. We're going to rotate in and out hosting duties, so we'll do just like go contact people in the community who like doing that kind of co-hosting duty, and different other people can do it. Because no one wants to see me every webcast. It needs to be around to different people.
Dude, you totally get like some troll in here, like myself. Wrong! That is incorrect!
Just hold up little signs like, this slide I'm voting a 2. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, bad. Someone says, when will the registration option be available at GroupBuy? If you go check on the project status and calendar, so we're not going to open registration for sessions until the sessions are actually picked, because it caps out at 1,000 people per session, so I want to make sure that only people who are really going to be in there actually register. Next one, are you guys seeing much interest in SQL on Linux? Alan Hurt told me he was in August at his class in Chicago. Nope.
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 I'm surprised someone actually has interest in SQL on Linux. Please tell me more.
Yeah, I don't get it. I get that there are people who are Linux only shops and they want an easier way to run databases. I find it kind of suspicious that people who have standardized on a free open source operating system are going to spend $2,000 a core on standard edition and $7,000 a core on enterprise edition.
Yes.
There are some pretty good open source databases out there. I'm not saying SQL Server sucks. It's amazing. I love SQL Server. It's fantastic. But if you're really drinking the Linux Kool-Aid, which is a delicious Kool-Aid, and I endorse it highly, great stuff, I don't see a lot of people going, I sure can't wait to give Microsoft my database money. I just don't see that.
Yeah, let me just throw out this Postgres thing that does some things really, really well, and let's get into the SQL Server thing that is not really running on Linux, but on this kind of faux hybrid OS-y thing that runs on top of Linux. Let's go with that.
It's a virtualization layer, basically. Drawbridge, which is now known as SQL PAL 2, SQL Platform Abstraction Layer 2. Anthony Nocentino has a great blog post about it. There will be in next week's weekly links, how he reverse engineered what Linux is doing, or what Microsoft is doing in order to run SQL Server on Linux. Early testing, for example, Klaus Aschenbrenner has done some early testing with Hackathon and found that it's almost twice as slow. Now, I have no reason to believe that Microsoft won't fix that stuff as we get closer to production, but I don't see a lot of people going, I'd like to use it on Linux and have it be slower, please. I just don't see that.
Yeah, let me use an in-memory database that's slower and it costs me more.
Yeah. And someone else says, I realize it's not a replacement for Windows, it's more for people running a lot of Linux concurrently. Linux isn't starving for database choices. Now, what Microsoft will tell you is that people who are using Oracle are looking for a way out. I would just say, as an independent database consultant, if you're going to go rewrite your app, because essentially if you're using PL SQL, you're going to be doing an app rewrite to move from one database to another. If you're going to rewrite your app, why not go with open source? Why not go with something that has no licensing cost to it? Sure, you're going to still pay support, but Postgres has got some pretty good-looking legs on it right now.
I mean, at that point, if you're thinking about changing your platform, why not go to the cloud? I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there that's looking really, really good right now, and just because I get to play with it every day, I'm just not saying that, right? It's true. There's some good stuff out there right now.
Yeah, between AWS has Aurora, there's all kinds of interesting scalable databases. I am a huge fan of Azure SQL DB. I think if you're going to write a .NET application that wants a relational database up there, and you can build it from scratch inside one database, no cross-database queries if you can avoid it, Azure SQL DB takes a lot of crappy work out of database administration, stuff that we just don't like to do. I'm very big on it. Follow-up question, can you teach a fish to climb a mountain? Linux is a different animal. I don't see that getting anywhere. Because I happen to be an Alaska guy, I'm a real big fan of Alaska. I've seen salmon going upstream, so I do know that can happen. They taste fantastic. Next question, when queries are in a sleeping status, does that mean that the application is not closing out the connection to SQL? Yep, exactly. If you look with one of my favorite diagnostic tools, SP Whoisactive, if you look with SP Whoisactive, that's something that's not included with SQL Server. It's an additional diagnostic tool that Adam Mechanic out of the Boston area wrote. It'll not only show you if it's sleeping, it'll show you if it has open transactions too as well. Next question, why are queries slower on a partition table? You just mentioned this. If you go to brentozar.com/go/partitioning or brentozar.com/go/partitioning, we have links that explain it. Kendra Little did a few example blog posts using the Stack Overflow database. If you split a table up into a bunch of little bitty child tables underneath, SQL Server has to recombine those results when it goes to join them to another table. So you can end up with even more expensive sorting. There have been a couple of clients where 80 to 85% of the cost of their select queries was simply reassembling the data from multiple partitions and then resorting it into a way that you could have had an index on a non-partition table. Well, you can put indexes on a partition table. Yes, but then you can't do partition switching. You can't drop a partition or load a partition at once.
Yep, and that's why we always I had a rule when I was working on that 60 terabyte master manga database that we always had to include the partition key. That way we didn't get any sort of craziness joining things back together and things like that.
And you mean included in the select query, like in the
That's
where
correct.
clause?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then, as long as you can do partition elimination, as long as you can tell SQL Server only look in these partitions, and it's a minority of the partitions, you can get good performance improvements. And I'm not saying I don't love partitioning. Partitioning's awesome. You just have to find the right use case for it. Maintenance, making table maintenance faster is the great use case for partitioning. Making selects faster, not quite as much.
But if you do the maintenance incorrectly, you could totally hose up a database. Let me tell you.
Oh, we still need. I need to have a blog post from the team on what were your worst database memories. You know, things, worst outages we've ever had. Let's see. We'll take two more questions. One of them is we tried to install SP3 to SQL Server 2012 and got an error, hexadecimal value, invalid character, blah blah blah. Tried re-downloading the SP, same error. I would just open a support call with Microsoft. Things like that. They may actually even know about the problem and have a fix for it. Then last one we'll take is, what would be the #1 feature you would want to see in the next version of SQL Server that some other database platform has, but we don't? So I'll let you think for a minute, Richie, because I have mine, and both me and Eric have blogged about this. I want non-logged tables. I want to be able to say that this specific table, I don't need to log it at all. Whatever data's in there, I'm going to live with. If something, hoses up mid-transaction, whatever I have for records in there is totally fine for me. The great examples of that are session state tables, reporting tables for like data marts that I could just clean out at the drop of a hat. You can't just fix this by putting a database into simple mode model. Tara will kill me if I don't say model. Simple recovery model will still log all your inserts, updates, and deletes to disk. Whereas if like Postgres has non-logged tables, that would let me solve some problems with clients really quickly by just saying, this table is garbage, let's turn off the logging. Like if I had that over the last year, how many real customer problems would I have solved? It's probably on the small number of fingers on one hand. It's just so cool. So I'm kind of jaded there. How about you, Richie?
So I could go hey, let's get some of the windowing functions to spec fully because they're kind of there, they're mostly there, but they could, but I'm not going to go there. There's a feature that they just released for Aurora that I've been playing around with. And I'll probably finish playing around with this week, but you could load data from S3 into Aurora. So I'm going to say that, being able to load data from a JSON or XML file and just by one line on the command line. And it just goes up and does it.
All right, so now I can think of another one. So I would also love to have, on always-on availability groups, I would love to have, and this is just pie in the sky, this is never going to happen, but I would love to have one replica that doesn't have indexes. I would love to have a replica that is just purely the clustered index, not any of the non-clustered indexes, or different non-clustered indexes somewhere else. So it would kind of give me the best of transactional replication plus always-on availability groups. It is never going to happen. I say that. I would love to have it happen. I just don't see it happening. JH says, how about table-level restores? All the third-party backup software can already do that anyway, so I'm kind of like, I'm used to seeing that out of Lightspeed, Redgate, and Idera. So if you want that, you can get that today for like $1,000 a server.
So there's another comment. Am I mistaken, but isn't no-log table the same as in-memory tables? Or
it's not. So with in-memory tables, first off, you have to accept all the restrictions of in-memory tables, which rule out a whole lot of capabilities of regular plain old tables. Plus, if they're durable, they are still written to disk. They're just written to disk in a different format. You can say non-durable in-memory tables, but those are simply erased whenever you go restart that SQL server. I do want the data there. I just don't need it logged.
Yeah, another great way to put session information inside a SQL Server, because that's always a great idea. Yeah, let's do that.
And so I actually came around. When they said that they're going to allow Hackathon in Standard Edition, I was like, okay, so finally I will accept session state in Hackathon on Standard Edition. I'm not happy about it, not excited about it. It still seems like flushing money down the toilet. But if you had to flush money down the toilet, now you can just flush it down with standard edition money instead of enterprise.
Yeah, so if you want to flush any more money down the toilet, you go to Richie Rump, Palmetto Bay, Florida, 33157. There you go.
There you go. And on that bombshell, we will end. Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next week. Adios.